everybody, welcome to BSing with BS, and I'm here with, I think it's my oldest son, but yeah, he's all COVID up, so hi.
I don't have COVID. I haven't.
No?
I haven't gotten it yet.
I no. Good thing.
Yeah.
Neither one of us do. Yes. Awesome.
Stay safe.
Awesome. Well, I'm hoping everybody is having a very animated day, because we're going to talk animation.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
So, you know, and we'll do a little shout out to your alma mater, but Full Sail went and
Yeah.
yeah.
Full Sail. 2-year like really extended or really accelerated bachelor program.
yeah,
And they make sure to just kind of get the ballpark of everything.
yeah.
And then you really try to focus and key in on at least one of them.
Yeah, I really like that concept. I know you were ready for it though, and
Traditional college is way too slow. I mean, in my humble opinion, college it does waste a lot of time, and it's you know, you want to party, but also as far as being there for college, like there's a lot of chaff time in traditional universities.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of kids now, especially, I think it would that kind of concept of you have classes all the way through, and you're going to be getting out with a bachelor's instead of 4 years, and let's take a break during the summer, and let's do this. And so, anyways.
I think it's weird that we spend 8 hours a day up until grade school ends. So up until 12th grade ends. And then when we get to college, it's more freedom. But then you go back to work and it's back to the school days again.
You do. A lot of people.
Like that timing is consistent throughout our schedule. And for whatever reason, college is the one that's just like, nah, whatever. You have a class at 2 p.m. Like,
although you would call me and you're like, 11 p.m. and you're like, where are you going? And I'm going to class.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of a neat thing. But anyway, so you finished up and graduated. I got to throw some kudos to you. You were salutatorian.
Yeah.
Right, of your class.
Yeah, and I still know the valedictorian. She is not in the field as far as I know.
No.
No, she got a job immediately after in
something else.
Yeah, and she's just kept it since then.
Well, so you rocked it, and then now thankfully I've had his skill set involved with my business, and so we have an intro video that is played in front of every one of our escape games, and he has took a large part of it. Thankfully, we had a lot of us at the time. We had some fun playing with that video,
yeah. We had. So the issue with animation and in even small scale production is that there's so much that goes into it. It basically equates to time or money or both.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just have to save the money because any given one of the processes can just be so long that you
arduous
are easily breaking your budget just on that process alone. So you just skip it. You just pay someone else to do it. They do it for a fraction of it. You get it back and then move on.
But thankfully, like that for that particular video, we had probably 4 of us at least.
Yeah, but remember what happened is we bought the model. And we got the licenses, we got the rights to the model.
Right.
And it was supposed to be rigged, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So luckily, that's something that I was able to do.
Right.
And I was able to re-rig it. But then at that point, now I'm already invested so much time into re-rigging it. And I also have to animate it. So if there's something wrong that I notice while I'm animating it, now I have to go back and fix it.
Right.
And also I had one of my friends help me. And I had to make sure that she was good with the rig.
Right. And so just clarifying, the rigging is basically put a skeleton in.
Rigging is the process that moves a statue into an animatable character.
Animatable? Is that a word?
It is now.
It is now. I was going to call bullshit on
and functionally, it doesn't have to be a charter. That's the crazy thing because
it could be potato.
Well, what you're doing is you're developing subsystems. So you're allowing the most common one is definitely the puppetry, right? You're allowing whatever needs to be controlled.
Like the hands.
But even something like mouse, right? You would still want this to kind of have some control over it. Like it's got buttons and stuff in it, so anything that moves needs some control over it, because you don't want to just be going in and messing around with the actual geometry. If something goes wrong and you want to revert it, and you've been messing around with the actual piece itself, then you've got a huge problem. You can't. You got to revert, basically.
Right. Well, and you're, of course, mainly doing computer animation.
Yes.
Where there's different softwares, but, it all started out with the individual, like the flip books and stuff. I've seen you do a couple of flip books.
So one of my ones that I did out of college, I definitely had to do a 2D animation class, and one of the ones I really liked was a balloon, which is a basic animation exercise for beginners. Basically, the idea is just that you start with a full balloon, and functionally you're just trying to deal with curvature. You're trying to deal with the idea of like something propelling gravity and then going in, and it's because it's so finite, or so specific.
Is it a balloon that's losing its air? That one.
Okay, so what I did is I really kind of went nuts with it, where I just have kind of an inherent understanding of movement and how inertia works and how gravity works. So the balloon is losing air rapidly, but it's not going in a curve. It's going because I try to animate it a lot more closely to how you've seen balloons in movies, where they're doing this epic roundabout of the circus, so that one's
still, like a Forrest Gump leaf that goes all.
That one's still in.
Right. Well, and you saw some of your first examples was the bouncing ball and how it mushes down. And you ever seen those slow motion of a golf club hitting a golf ball?
Oh yeah,
and how it compresses. That's what those reminded me of when you were doing the animations of a ball, and when it would come down and then hit, and then it would compress before it and shot up the next.
Yeah, so what's interesting is what you're describing is squash and stretch, and that's a principle of animation. So there's 12 principles of animation, and what's weird is that people actually know them. They just don't know they know them. Because how overlapping action is one of the easiest ones to kind of explain that people actually do know what they're talking about, even if they don't know why. Because Disney actually, when they were doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disney brought on a bunch of animators, the seven old men or nine old men, I think. Seriously, that was their title. And somebody brought in, and they were animating Doc, and he was just walking, and they couldn't figure out why he didn't look natural. Well, they weren't animating his fat. That's overlapping action. So you understand that things need to move as a result of other things.
So his body was moving, but the belly bouncing, the jolly, the jolly.
And you'll see this in cheap 3D these days, where you see a pretty good walk and a pretty good action or whatever, but those small details as far as like clothing moving or fat moving. Sometimes you'll have hands that are not really articulated. I mean, I'm guilty of that for sure, because fingers just take a lot of time. So that is going to be one of the budget cuts, more or less. You're going to set a primary, you're going to set a primary hand pose, and then the only reason you're going to change it is if you're going into such another key pose that you can't keep that other one.
Like this doesn't make sense to be.
Like walking is always one of those things that you have to adjust it, because otherwise, they're doing the robot.
All right, so I'll throw a little trivia. So you just mentioned Snow White. Remember what year Snow White came out?
1939.
I would love to say that, because that was the year my mom was born, and that's what I always thought it was. But actually, I think it was 1937. I think it actually came out a little bit, because I remember my mom saying she remembers watching it. But that means it had been out for a while, and I was like, well...
Even if it came out year of, I mean, what came out my year? When did Toy Story come out? 95?
Well, but point is, that's
I haven't seen Toy Story.
I know. Okay, so, it's funny that you said that, because both Snow White and Toy Story have two the pretty much the same kind of
They both
place
get,
in history.
Yeah, they both get firsties for sure.
they're firsties. If you will.
Snow White, notoriously the first full feature length animated movie.
Right.
And then picks Toy Story, the first computer generated full length feature.
Yeah, it's the first full length 3D film.
Yeah.
It's considered 3D versus
And if you
Snow
look at-
White is 2D first animated. That one's the first animated one.
Yeah, well, there was no feature length. It was the first feature length animated.
Yes,
That was the big deal.
yes.
And the thing about Toy Story is here's the thing is that as you get more and more into this, you really do start to look at movies differently, and especially something as old as Toy Story. If you go back and look at those characters, you start to notice that those characters are not very mobile, but it's done so in the framework of the context, and that is why they, it is in no short reason why they did toys in the first place.
Right.
One of the hardest things to do even today is making realistic movement happen in the deformation points, which is your elbows, shoulders, knees. And how they got around that is, if you notice, Woody's deformation points are all flattened already. So basically, they're just a hinge instead. And likewise, so is Buzz's. Buzz's is also just a rotation.
Right.
Yeah. And even popping out, that when he pops up, it's still just a socket.
Now you're gonna look at that all different, kind of watching there.
Yeah, I mean, and so even I won't go into too much spoilers as far as I've seen Raya and the Last Dragon, which came out a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it's about a week or two at the time of filming. So one of the things that I saw about that movie is just how beautifully it was cinematography. That's what I'm looking for.
Cinematography.
I don't know who the director of photography for that movie was, but the movie, every shot, I mean, you can literally go through the movie and pause it, and every shot will be a painting, and that is definitely a benchmark of a fantastic director and a fantastic director of photography if you can have so many picturesque scenes.
Well, and you think about that in itself, even if you don't have the characters, the backgrounds of the settings behind the scene, behind the action is you look at the old Roadrunner. Where it's just plateau, cactus, plateau, cactus, and it's just, they're just running the same ones. And that, of course, was to save money and time, but to see some of these other, and you've got a great one, that your NFT is a really cool background too.
Yeah.
You could have some really cool action going on there, and, but those backgrounds are super cool to look at as well.
And that's where, that's why 2D art really has not lost anything 3D art has only added to 2D art, because you still do see these miraculous storyboards, you see these miraculous environments that are still they're being painted first. I promise they're being painted first.
Yeah, you need your setting.
Yeah,
you need to know whether
like they're literally being painted. Like somebody's taking a canvas and saying, what's this environment going to look like? And they are going and they're painting full murals. Then they're bringing it into 3D space and from there it gets really fun, right? Because After Effects, as an example, has 3D stilt technology, which is basically just you can layer.
Oh yeah.
So it forms parallax, but you can layer images and videos, so you can artificially create 3D space.
Yeah. Like they're coming out from behind the tree.
Yeah,
and they're going in front of the rock, but behind the
Yeah,
the
sometimes
car.
if you need to get a crowd completely out of the way, you can just completely cut it because it happens to be on a different layer. So I'm just going to. It's just not there anymore, plain and simple. And that goes into just staying clean with the workflow.
Yeah, And I've seen some. I can't say them all, but there's some that are like. Those are amazing backdrops. Yeah. And sometimes I will watch the backdrops and not the actions.
Yeah, so if you ever look at the behind the scenes for Coco, that the Land of the Dead, that's thousands of layers.
Really?
Thousands of layers. That entire
cool.
city scene, how they break it down, and it's worth it because if you ever look on that on a good TV, I mean, it's immaculate. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's and then you think about it, it all started out with, like I was saying earlier, like these flip books and stuff, and
That's how I started. That was it was a required.
Yeah.
You had to. They gave you a flip book of X pages, and you had to do at least one. And I was working on my second one.
Yeah. So I mean, and we used to do them when they were kids, just
I did too.
oh, he's riding a bike, oh, he's, But they're also, I remember, there were, even when you guys were young, there were some books that all you had to do was shift them. And that was kind of a way of animation where you were had a horse, and they're actually just slides of a horse, and all you're doing was shifting them. But as you shift them, it made it look, animated, and it's just like a variety. It's a different variation of animation.
Yeah, it's a funny example because in reality, you have an animator who's sitting there drawing, pictures all day. He or she's just flip, 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 flip. So that's what they're doing.
Right.
So it is kind of funny that functionally, like, you have these little, pop-up books or whatever,
right.
and and I would say basically animation is the illusion of movement. That would be my definition.
Exactly.
And because of that,
exactly
that includes stop motion, that
right.
includes, picture art, whatever you do. At the end of the day, all you're doing is making something move that is not actually doing that.
Right. There is and I'm going to completely draw a blank on it, but there is a phenomena that happens in your mind that allows you to understand artificial animation. We're looking around and I see you move your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's because you're physically moved, but we're perceiving that as, okay, that's movement.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's artificial movement, there is a phenomena, and I'm just drawing a blank as to what the name is.
There's uncanny valley, but that's actually a negative. That uncanny valley will break immersion, and that is the concept. It happens in 3D a lot. And basically, it happens when something is close enough to humans, but not quite. The best example is Polar Express.
No, I've seen that. Yes,
Polar Express is the easy example. The characters are very human, but they're not quite, and that really bugs people.
Yeah, there's a couple of like that.
Yeah.
But there was one, and I think it's based on a video game. One of the movies they did, and I actually had to win. I'm not familiar enough with the video game. So when I came across the movie, I was like, are they real people? No, they're not. Wow, and it was kind of neat, So it's advanced, obviously, in the last
we'll probably,
decade or so, but
we could probably end on this. But I will say that animation has no longer cares if it's in film or games. That part of that has really consolidated to the point of game engines are so good now that films are using game engines to render their stuff.
Yep.
Just because the film engines are kind of falling behind or hyper specialized.
Right.
So I mean, the one that pops out to me immediately is Square Enix, who have done the Final Fantasy games all these years, and their recent cinematics. I mean.
Yeah.
They've definitely got a style. The only reason it doesn't look crystal clear is because they don't want it to, honestly.
Yeah.
That's the only reason at this point.
They need some sort of glitch, if you will. They need to make sure that isn't...
It's the anime style, it's the face structure that really, is that kind of high fantasy design.
Yeah.
That kind of... in Japanese inspired as well, so it's very feudal. A lot of armor, a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Here's a trivia question for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. First off, who came first? Steamboat Willie, or Felix the Cat?
Felix the Cat.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yes.
Should I call you bullshit on you?
No, it's Felix the Cat. It's definitely Felix the Cat. Walt Disney worked on Felix the Cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. No, it is Felix.
Walt Disney worked on Felix the Cat before he worked on Mickey, and that it was actually Mickey Mouse is a direct competitor to Felix the Cat. It's out of spite, honestly. It is
Which-
it is a forlorn employee who said I can do it better and did.
Right, but that's just like one of those cases where the mouse is chasing the cat.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that played into it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because
Well, you can't have a dog because that would be too obvious.
Well,
Like
and they bring a dog
following
in
after-
later.
Oh yeah,
you
I
know,
know. But I'm just well, dogs with pants, dogs without pants.
Yeah, the goofy Pluto thing is really gray. I
saw a meme. Speaking of those guys, I saw a meme where Mickey and Donald. I don't know if you posted it.
No, that was mine. Yeah,
it?
That was mine.
And they're looking in a clothing store, and it's a full on outfit. And they said, "You want to go halvesies?"
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. Mickey took the pants and Donald took the
shirt.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, that's pretty cute." So, were you taught? Or who do you consider to be the father of animation? Did they ever go through to that history of those?
The closest to that is they were trying to settle a bet that somebody bet that a horse, when it is galloping, it leaves the ground. And they're like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't leave the ground. And they later found out that all running leaves the ground. But how they found out was the very first recording device capable of actually tracking a horse.
Yeah.
And they put it in a 12 frames per second spinner.
Yeah.
So it literally was just all the pictures, and you look through the people.
It's a Kino.
I don't actually know what it's titled.
Kinoscope? I don't know.
So as far
I'll
as
have to look it up.
as
I
far as
I remember what it.
the father of animation, it's often cited that is the very first public animation was that video of the horse.
Yes.
And it wasn't, again, video in light terms. It was the movie format of the time.
I don't think the word video might not have even been
No,
invented at that
it
point.
was not even an apple in someone's eye at that point.
Yeah, well, so I did a little research. So it was interesting that, part because Edison built some of his machines off the technology of his predecessors, and they made celluloid cells that could hold images. So in other words, you're capturing the images. It was made out of like gum camphor, that kind of stuff. But then everything was built off of that technology and moving forward, and they're capturing those images. So I'm curious. I don't know if those horses were captured on that kind of celluloid cell, if you will. I mean, that's where that comes from. But
yeah, and I guess you'd really have to start to look into the history of cinema itself as far as when animations start to become mainstream, because there really wasn't, I'm sure you could go back and find a ton of art. I'm sure you could do it, because art has existed in a commercial capacity since America has, at least. And then obviously everything else that.
It's been way before that,
But so you can definitely find pop culture of the time. And likewise, these people who are advertising are also the people with the money, enough so that a couple of them decided to go into the film business as it was rising. So it's very possible that you could start to see maybe a Felix the Cat advertisement, and it's the equivalent of, the rookie card. It basically, it was not a mainstream appeal. It was just a small company that had that as its icon.
Right. Can you imagine being in the boardroom, going, okay, what if we were to animate something that kept people in a theater for almost an hour?
Yeah, I mean, everyone thought it was crazy.
Going, now we have these epic, all this computer animated stuff, whether it's truly, I say cartoonish, but versus whatever else the CG stuff the
more realistic
style
that
moves
style,
forward. But going. So, honey, I pitched the idea. They weren't too happy about it.
Well, and I can only imagine the people who tried to do that. Like, I don't know, I should know who the creator of Felix the Cat was, but I have to imagine that this was also on their wheelhouse. they also had the dream
Yeah.
to do a full-length feature, and unfortunately, Disney really came in and sniped the market, because by the time Felix would have gotten big enough to do that, the timing was just not right for them, and it was right for Walt Disney, who came in and basically said, I'm going to go bankrupt, this is it. You bet it all, and it worked. Yeah. So that's why it's history.
Well, and there's just so many that kind of jumped on board after that.
He got a tremendous amount. He put together a team, and he chose well.
Yeah.
Which truly kind of goes to show how much you can do with the right team.
Right.
These really impossible feats are capable. You just got to get the skill in there, and sometimes depends on how high you aim for the sum. You're just not gonna get there sometimes.
Yeah. And that's all just we've just been talking about almost like entertainment animation. You know, the other there's so many different varieties of what it's being used for, and
we briefly touched on game and animation, which is huge.
But think about advertising. Even instruction, PSAs, the military. All these animation, things. So it's
much like any art form, there is various different levels of it, and even as you get more and more professional, there's still different levels of professional. There's always going to be, well, I say always, there should always be a need for marketing. There should always be a need for graphic design. There should and animation. Right. In today's day and age is getting to the point where it's cheap enough that the actual animation is all people have to pay for, and then they outsource everything else. Yeah. So the only major payment is exactly what they want. Yeah. Which is exactly the conditions that people need to be excited about anything. They do not any given product that has a bunch of chaff stapled onto it is just going to be kind of unappetizing.
Well, that's cool. Well, I know that you're heading for big things and big animated things.
Say so.
Always looking for new projects and always open for new projects and such. So,
I'm working through. Definitely talk with a lot of actor friends. Talk with a lot of people in the space. And networking easily is more important than anything else. Yeah. You do have to have a certain amount of skill, but after you get past that point, there is kind of a bar standard where you'll pass most art tests you'll get up to. So guess what? You got to get somebody to get your name in the ring, because that's really what's the important part.
Yeah. So that's awesome, because you got some skill. Awesome.
Just keep working away at it. It's literally time that defines artists. So.
And it's not practice makes perfect, but practice makes better stuff. And I don't think anything's perfect, but so anyways, all right. Well, I appreciate you chatting with me. Yeah. So, but hope you guys had fun. Thanks for joining us. See us next time. Bye-bye.